Hello, Saints. Last time we talked about Gnosticism and the moral influence theory, how Jesus is to be our example. Now, there's nothing wrong with Jesus being our example, because he is. But is that the primary model we want to look at? I mean, Jesus came and did it, so now you go and do it too. Is that the message of salvation that we want to give? That isn't the best model. There's a general model we need to look at. This week we're going to look at two models. One is called the ransom theory, and the other one is the satisfaction theory. And out of the ransom theory, some years later, it was revamped, and it's simply known today as Christus Victus. And those are the two things we'll look at, and they're pretty simple. The ransom theory was a dominant theory. There were many others. There wasn't only one, but there was a dominant theory for about the first 1,000 years. And what it simply said is that the ransom was paid to Satan by the cross. And by the 12th or early 12th century, Anselm, Bishop of Canterbury, thought that that didn't sound right, to pay Satan a ransom. And he took the basic same theory, and he figured that who was satisfied was God, not Satan. And it became known as the satisfaction theory. And the idea of this theory was that man had sinned against God. We had basically discredited his honor, and there was no way for us to apologize and make it right because we were so broken and so sinful. And that the only one who could do it would be a perfect person, i.e. Jesus Christ on the cross. And so he's the one who had to do that for us and to satisfy God's wrath. That in itself is not a pretty picture because it pits Jesus against God. It says God is mad at us and Jesus steps between God and man to make everything okay. And that's a distorted view of salvation. The ransom theory, of course, is a problem because Satan is not the one who gets the ransom. He is owed nothing. He is the original rebel. But what happened in about the 1930s is a new view of the ransom theory was developed, and not so much that the ransom was paid to Satan, but that Christ was victorious upon the cross. And this was the view that was being established or reestablished as the primary model of salvation. And it's called Christus Victus, Christ is victor. And today you find a lot of people who hold to this view as opposed to God seeking his pound of flesh. N.T. Wright, whom I love dearly, is an Anglican, retired now, and he has a view that this is his point of view, is the Christus Victus view. Now he teaches what's called NPP, the New Perspectives of Paul. This is a relatively new idea, probably in the last 50, 60 years, and really well developed only in the last 40. But this isn't a model of salvation. It's actually a method or a tool to lead us to a model. And N.T. Wright, while he is the poster child for NPP, New Perspectives on Paul, he would say that his view of salvation is primarily Christus Victus, though he says he doesn't deny substitutionary atonement, but in some ways he does. Contrary to that, is you have John R.W. Stott, an Anglican too, who does not hold to NPP, but holds to substitutionary atonement in his book, The Cross, that I recommend you pick up if you want a serious study on this. And he has a very good approach to building a salvation model. So it's these two positions here, primarily the ransom theory and the satisfaction theory. And the ransom theory then revamped later on into the Christus Victus. There are some things to be said about each one of these, but alone, they don't seem to present the real model that we want to see, especially since our journey through on the first videos about salvation by faith, not by works. Christ is the one who is the good shepherd who seeks us out, and that we, producing fruit, is in the guise of following the command of Jesus, to love one another as Christ has loved us, and to present the message to the world in a restoration kind of point of view, and not as if it's just a business transaction, in which there is a legal transaction involved, don't get me wrong. But these two views while, like I said, while they have something to show us, are not the complete answers. And so next week we're going to take a look at a couple things, and one of them I think is going to be able to be the model for us about salvation, and help us to understand how we fit into that model. Blessings.